Good evening and welcome to all of you. Welcome to day 3. You know how time just flies by because it's probably has been 2 weeks since I started really pushing and saying, people, let's start the year right. Well, it took me a while because at first I thought, should we build a vision board or, what should we do at the beginning of the year? Because we're always doing something and it's always a significance, right, at the beginning of the year that it's time for us to do something to start the year. But then I thought this year, I said, you know what? It's that year that every one of us, we need to declare that this is my year. I don't know what it entails, for you, but I have certain goals. I have certain things that I'm really going for this year that I'm saying this is my year. So I thought one of the things that prevents us from making sure that we actually get the results of the goals and the desires that we have is, self-confidence. It's also inner strength of having the strength to really follow through with everything that we want, to really believe in ourselves that we can do it and we can have it. And sometimes it's even not even, thinking that we are capable of making a difference in our own lives or in other people's lives. So igniting your inner strength came to mind, and here we are. Welcome to day 3. If you have not watched our replays, please, I urge you to go back to day 1, day 2. There were a lot of things in there, a lot of nuggets. What I love about doing this with all of you is it gives me an opportunity to also self-reflect on myself. So never think that whenever I'm doing this, I'm not taking the time to do it myself. I'm actually even more excited to go back and rewatch every presentation. And then I have my book, I have my pen and paper, and I also start circling up, what my strengths are. And I'm also starting to write my goals. And I'm actually, painting a vision board. Yesterday, we talked about a very interesting, exercise, probably a couple of them. I said for you to take a pen and paper, and hopefully you have a journal that you're working with, right? And write 100 achievements, 100 things that you have achieved so far in your life. Believe it or not, when you don't get to think about it and go, ooh, 100, where will I don't have 100 things that I have done. And you just say, okay, I'm going to take my pen and my paper and let me write 100 things that I have done. Here's how I started mine. I wrote the numbers 1 to 100. And I said, I don't care how long it takes. I am going to make sure that each of these numbers has got an accomplishment of things that I've accomplished. So here's the thing, because I want you to start thinking differently as we ignite your inner strength, right? When we hear accomplishments, when we hear a question about the things that you have successfully completed, that you have successfully done, many of us are thinking, well, graduating college, okay, high school, okay, that was it. Or maybe just high school and I didn't even go to college, so I don't have any achievements. No, 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 no. You have a whole lot of achievements that you have when you start thinking about it from a broader perspective, right? So every little thing that you take for granted. Yesterday, I was saying to those that were here yesterday, I said, attending just this 4-day challenge is a big, huge success. Registering for it was a big, huge success because you're taking care of yourself. You are also opening yourself up to hearing one or more things that will make you a different person this year, that will make you think differently, act differently, achieve more, and also become a better version of you than you were last year. Big achievement. Let's say you want to look at the graduations, you want to look at the jobs, even applying for a job and getting a job. That's a big achievement and accomplishment. Because remember now, you have to look for a job, you have to interview for a job, you have to be hired for the job. So being hired and going through all of that takes inner strength, and it's a success. Let's say you are a parent that has raised children. Do not judge yourself based on what the children have or have not done. You just having been a parent and being there for these children, that's a big accomplishment. Some people do get pregnant and they abort the children. Some do get pregnant and they're not able to take care of themselves or their children. So whatever you have done is the best that you can, and you've tried it. And even if you gave birth and you gave the baby for adoption, that's a big accomplishment because you were able to see yourself and saying, you know what, I want more for this child, so I'm going to give them for, adoption. I want you to just look at the things that you can say, I did good, right? And I'm not saying that there are, certain things in our lives that we haven't done good. They are, but I just want you to look at the 100 things that you can say, yep, I graduated kindergarten. Yep, I finished a course. Yes, I went through pottery. Yes, I actually did a training with people and I was able to present before the people. Yes, I did, so on mine, the Bounce Back Empowerment Conference is right there, right? Because I was able to do it. This year will be year number 5 that we're doing the Bounce Back Conference. So yes, it's an accomplishment. And then also starting the Bounce Back book anthology, where I take different authors. I had 20 last year, and hopefully this year we have 20 to 30 authors that will come in and author with us a chapter for Bounce Back Book 2. So that's an accomplishment. Is it, fearful? Of course it's fearful. But we spoke about fears yesterday, and I also had an exercise in there. So pretty much, you see how exciting it is. So I want to, encourage you to go back to day 1, day 2, and I need to get into day 3 because knowing me, I'll be talking forever. So as I said in the past 2 days, one of the things that I do is I want to make sure that you have the full version extend where you are not distracted at all. So we're going to do day 3, and I am going to get off from the video. That way we can start talking about day 3. So this is exciting. Day 3 is about finding balance and harmony. Finding balance and harmony. Let me just start off with 3 breaths to just help us to just relax, because many of you are joining me in the middle of work and it's a break time. Some people, you've had a whole day of work or picking up the kids from school and it's just been on and on and on. So here you are, and then you remembered, oh, I gotta run. It's day 3 of the challenge. And then you are here with me. So let's start off by doing a breathing exercise. I'm going to ask you to breathe in through the nose and blow out slowly through the mouth. We're just going to go and do 3 and start off by a short meditation of just centering ourselves as we start to talk about finding balance and harmony. All right? You may close your eyes just to minimize any distractions or lights. Okay. Breathe in and breathe out. Breathe in and breathe out. Do one more. Breathe in and breathe out. You may open your eyes. Wow. In the chat, put for me in the chat, yes or no, to tell me how you're feeling after just the 3 breaths that we did. Very relaxing. All right. Let's go and talk about balance and harmony. We're going to look at 3 areas as we talk about this today. We'll look at burnout, we'll look at boundaries, and we're going to talk about self-care. Burnout. Why are we talking about burnout? Well, here's one thing that I know for sure. A lot of us are struggling with burnout, especially right now. With the COVID now coming back again, the symptoms of COVID, and people still struggling with that, we are struggling with burnout. So a lot of people are struggling with burnout right now, right? A lot of people are struggling with stress and cannot, you know, deal with the amount of stress and requirements and the high demands of life right now. So burnout for some people, right, it may be a little bit difficult to describe, but let's take it this way. The general description is burnout will affect mental, physical, and emotional being. So we struggle with severe stress, exhaustion, we are drained, we are just exhausted. We don't know what to do with ourselves because the body is just like, no, no, no. And then we can take one more thing. You know that, okay, you might be struggling with burnout at that point when you're feeling emotionally, mentally drained and you're not able to cope. So, what causes burnout? Many a time, if you are working, there are many unrealistic personal and work expectations that might cause burnout. I call them personal and unrealistic because then sometimes we are expected to do certain things in our job, and then the pressures that we put on ourselves might not be realistic. And sometimes it's not you, it's the job itself, which are realistic expectations that they have, but then you just don't have it in you to even push one more minute. So then that causes burnout. Loneliness, isolation, mental or emotional overload will cause burnout. Feeling exhausted, unable to recover from things like a common cold. You get many headaches, frequent headaches, sometimes stomach problems, sometimes sleep problems, shortness of breath. Those are some of the things that you might feel when you are burned out. How do you know if you're burned out? Ooh, great question. Okay. You begin to be irritable. Sometimes you're just crying and you're like, why am I crying? Many a time you get angry real quick. For something, it's almost like people don't understand that I'm exhausted, I'm frustrated. So then you come at people real quick, at that point when you are burnout. Some people get paranoid about other people that are around them, especially if you're at work in the workplace, you get suspicious, you get paranoid about colleagues, bosses, or if you're a boss, you get paranoid about those around you. Some people begin to drink a little more, smoke a little more, use other substances that they might use to just find that feeling good, feeling better. Some people say, you know what, I'm just stubborn when I'm burned out. I just don't want to hear it. I don't want to move. I don't want to shift my thinking. I don't want to listen to anybody. Negative attitude is very common. And then appearance of depression where you just feel sad and gloomy and you don't want to wake up and you don't want to do anything. That's also a sign of burnout. So when we're talking about burnout, what are some of the things that you can do after realizing that, I'm burnout? But before we get into the coping with the burnout, here's what I want you to do. I want you on a piece of paper to go through the signs that I spoke about. Out of these, which ones have you felt lately? Which ones, or have you seen let's say you put your name and write down the ones that you felt. And then you put husband or wife or child, put the list what you've seen, and then put boss or colleague, put down what you have seen, just so you can see that, oh, I didn't know that it was burnout, right? Because recognition is number one when we are dealing with anything in our lives. Recognizing and realizing what we're dealing with is a big first step. So go back here and look at these and then take a moment and write down what you have felt or experienced. Also, go through this list. Have you felt exhausted? Have you felt frequent headaches, sleep disturbances, maybe sometimes shortness of breath? Write down this list as well on which ones that you have felt. You're going to be getting a replay of this, so you'll be able to go through this video and just, put it backwards and stay on a slide. And that's why I like to do these in slides as well. That way you can go back and really pause and then write down, as you think and see them. Have you been feeling irritable? Sometimes do you cry sometimes and you're like, why am I crying for? Have you used the drinking? Maybe you used to have 1 glass of wine a week and now it's like an everyday thing. Maybe it's 2, 3 glasses of wine that you're drinking now. Stubbornness, negative attitude, maybe feeling depressed, exhausted, irritable. Write those things down. And now we can get back to the coping. How do you deal with burnout? First thing is admitting that you're burned out. Putting a distance between yourself and the things that stress you out mentally, physically, right? And that means taking some mental health day off. You know how we take a sick day off? I think people forget that you can also take a mental health day off and literally call in. As you can see, headaches and, feeling exhausted is part of burnout, right? But then if you call in and say, I'm just having these headaches, they just can't seem to stop. So I'm going to take a day off so that I can just take care of myself. What you've done is you've taken care of your mental health, because many companies still don't understand that I'm just feeling sad, I'm just feeling exhausted, I need time off. They're not going to give you that day off. But if it's related to any of the symptoms of the headaches that have to do with the physical, guess what? Oh, okay, all right, feel better, and we'll see you tomorrow. So I am doing more trainings with companies so that they can also understand that not only physical ailments affect us, but we also have mental ailments that literally will need for someone to take some time off and relax. Focusing on your physical and mental health is also key to coping with burnout, as well as get professional help and speak to a counselor like myself, where we can talk about those things that you're dealing with and find ways that you can deal with each and everything that you're going through. Many a time, I think what we forget is, even if we're in the same job, what I'm experiencing and what you're experiencing might be different. And the way that I will deal with them might be different with the way that you're dealing with them if we're on the same job. So the benefit of, talking to a counselor or a coach is that we come up with different ways that fit you, that, apply to you, that can help you deal with burnout and stress that you might be experiencing. Boundaries. I love this part because we don't talk about boundaries a lot, right? So a boundary is an imaginary line that separates me from you. An imaginary line that separates who you are and who I am, what I want and what you want, what I like and what you like. Boundaries help us separate physical space, our needs, and responsibilities. They tell other people how they can treat you, what's acceptable and what is not acceptable. Boundaries. So in the chat, I'm going to ask you, do you have boundaries? Yes or no? And I mean, do you have somewhere where you literally have written them for yourself to say, you know what, this here is a boundary for me, and I don't like people to do this, and I want people to do this, because it's not just about I don't want, it's also about I want, right? So yes or no? Before I started teaching this year, I took it for granted that, well, I know my boundaries and I know what I want and what don't want from people, but I started writing them and understanding the different types of boundaries, which at first I didn't know until I started researching and teaching them. And the more I taught, the more I've done these trainings and also working with people individually, I'm like, oh, it's really important for me to know the different types. Watch what will happen as we go through. So what happens when you have no boundaries? Well, without boundaries, people may and they will take advantage of you because then, well, there's no reason, why they shouldn't do certain things to you, why they shouldn't disrespect you in a certain way, say things in a certain way, expect you to jump high, how high, because you have never defined your boundaries. So there are 6 types of boundaries that I am going to talk about. There are actually even more, boundaries, but I'm just going to at least jumpstart you with 6 types of boundaries: physical, emotional, time, sexual, intellectual, and material boundaries. All right, let me get into detail with those. Physical boundaries. This is when you need personal space, your comfort, level. Sometimes this is also, when people touch you, hug you. I'm a hugger. And I didn't know, to be honest with you, that you have to ask people for permission to hug them. So I didn't know until I came to America and then realized that, ooh, there's something called boundaries. So being an African, I'm from Zimbabwe. If you haven't gotten my history, please go back to video number 1. I talk a little bit about myself and my background, but I didn't know, because then in Africa or in Zimbabwe, right, we hug each other. Hi, how are you? Well, that was before COVID. Because right now we can't just do that because people are sick, right? But we used to just hug each other and then, greet each other and say goodbye with a hug. And then I come here, I would realize that, whoa, there's something called physical boundaries. So not everybody wants to be touched or hugged, and it's something that we all need to understand and respect as a physical boundary. A physical boundary also could be something like needing rest, wanting to eat food or not wanting to eat food, certain foods, and drinking water or not, drinking water. I mean, you name it. It can be a boundary, because many a time we forget that people have preferences and boundaries that they have, right? So a healthy physical boundary might sound like this if you're going to set one. I'm really tired and I need to sit down now. That's a boundary. And we have to make sure that we honor that boundary rather than wait on someone to honor that boundary. You can also say, I'm not a big hugger. I'm a handshake person. How you doing? And extend your hand. I'm allergic to such and such, so we can't have that in our home because I'm allergic to it. No, I don't want you to touch me like that. Don't go into my room without asking first. I need you to ask me for permission to get into my room. Those are physical boundaries. And you notice the tone of my voice is also a tone that is not harsh, that is not forceful, because when we do this, it's not the boundary sometimes, but it's how we set the boundary that makes a difference with people. All right. Emotional boundaries. That is respecting and honoring our feelings, our energy, knowing when to share and when not to share things, limiting our emotional sharing, talking to people, telling people about our story, about our life, about what is happening in us day to day. Emotional boundaries. So how do you set them? An example: when I share my feelings with you and get criticized, it makes me totally shut down. I can only share with you if you're able to respond respectfully to me. So this is when you're talking to somebody who always criticizes you when you say something, and you can never have a word in. because they're ready to criticize you and they're very critical. You can say this to them and say, I will share my feelings with you only when you're able to respond respectfully to me. You can also set an emotional boundary by saying, I'm so sorry you're having such a tough time. Right now, I'm not in a place to take it all in. Do you think we can come back to this conversation later? And it's okay. You're not disrespecting anyone, but you are respecting your emotional boundary that you cannot take it anymore. And you just need to take some time until you're ready to talk about that. That's a good boundary. And someone will, stop saying whatever they were saying. Be prepared, though. Many people are not used to this. When you say these things here, when you're setting boundaries, every time that you're setting a boundary, you're saying no. In other words, people are not receptive to saying no and receiving that. And it's okay. You stand your ground and only share with them when they respond to you respectfully, and you're the best judge of that. And when they don't and they continue to be themselves, just don't share your personal stuff and put yourself in the line of fire to be criticized. Just don't, make yourself available to listen to the whole story when you've already said, I can't talk. If it's on the phone, just say, you know what, I'll talk to you later. I've got to go now. So I'm going to put the phone down, and you put the phone down and you call it a day. If you're sitting in there, say, I'm going to have to excuse myself. I'm sorry. I need to, take care of myself, or go to the bathroom, wash up, take a shower, or just lay down and say, I just need to lay down for right now, and we can come back to this conversation later and physically move from that position. You can also say, I really cannot talk about that right now. It's not the right time. And that's it. So healthy emotional boundaries might also sound like this, right? Emotional boundary violations. When people violate emotional boundaries is when they criticize, like the previous example, they criticize or dismiss, your feelings. They ask questions that are not appropriate for the relationship, reading or going through personal or emotional information. That is not a healthy boundary. That is also violating someone's boundary. And we can go back and forth with this one, because a lot of people are like, no, why can't I go through their personal information or the phone or something? Well, but that's a boundary that you're violating. Asking people to justify their feelings, because people will feel a certain way, and if they say that's how I feel and that's how it's feeling to me, there's no justification of that except to understand that that's how they're feeling. Because then how a person feels or reacts or responds to something, that's on them. So sometimes when you ask them to justify that feeling, you are actually violating their emotional boundary. Assuming we know how people feel, telling other people how they feel, that's also a healthy emotional boundary, that's going against a healthy emotional boundary. So let's say you are in counseling with me, or we're doing a coaching, right? I am going to ask how you're feeling rather than assume how you're feeling, or even telling you how you're feeling. I'm going to ask how you're feeling and how that feels for you. So you can tell me, or you can put words on those feelings rather than me putting words in your feelings, right? But we tend to do that in relationships and say, I know you feel angry and I know you feel, but we don't know that you're feeling angry. I am thinking and I am, assuming that you're feeling angry, but are you angry, or how are you feeling? That's the thing that we can do if we're going to respect emotional boundaries and create healthy emotional boundaries. Is this making sense? Okay, let's go to the next one. This one is a violation again, emotionally dumping on people without their permission, just dumping everything, or and just telling them everything, but you don't have permission to share that with them. That's a violation of emotional boundary. Sharing inappropriate emotional information with your children, that's an inappropriate way, and it's also a violation of their emotional boundaries. This one, again, we go back and forth because people are like, well, what do you mean? I can tell my children anything and I can share anything with my children. Well, there's certain things that they cannot handle with their young minds. And young, it means even if it's your child that is 40 something years old and you are 60 or 70 something years old, they're still not at your level. They still have a different way of, thinking about things. So be cognizant of how you share emotional information with them. Another boundary is time boundaries. Here, let me say this nice and slowly. Your time is valuable. And say this after me. My time is valuable. Say it again. My time is valuable. It's important to protect your time. Setting time boundaries is very important at work, home, or even socially. So what does a healthy time boundary, look like? Healthy time boundary ties in with an emotional boundary as well, right? Because then you can say things like this: I can't come to that event this weekend. That's protecting your emotions. It's also protecting your time. I can only stay for an hour. Time boundary. Do you have time to chat today? Can I talk to you for probably 30 minutes or so? Time boundary. I was talking to one of my sisters. I have 5 sisters. I was talking to Nikki the other day. Nikki is the youngest sister, and she is one of those people that all of us, we call Nikki and just laugh with Nikki because she's just a happy young lady, right? And I remember years ago saying to her, you need to make sure that you protect your time, because we all can just dial a number anytime and then you're answering the phone 24/7. Yeah, and you can't do that. Protect your time. And she says, well, but then I don't want to have to miss a call. And then one day I miss a call and one of my sisters or my friends, they're no longer here. And I missed that phone call. I said, wait a minute. I totally understand that. But then there's going to be a time where you cannot emotionally take, all these calls from friends, family. She's got her own children as well. She's married. You can't do it all the time. I was so surprised as I was preparing for this. And I said to her, I'm talking about boundaries. And one of those boundaries, I thought of you because it's time boundary. And she says, oh, let me tell you, I now shut my phone at a certain time. I also now to, know to not answer my phone at certain times when I'm at work during the day, because it is so overwhelming, the stuff that I'm expected at work. And then if I answer 1 or 2 calls from you all, she calls us you all, right? From you all, then my time is already gone. So protect your time. Excuse me. Protect your time. Excuse me. Because many a time, right, we are so afraid what people will say, and we are so afraid that, if I don't answer them, then, would they think that I betrayed them? But no, your time is valuable. Even now in business, because, I'm in business. So I know the value of time in business now. And many a time we were saying, with people, find multiple streams of income. They're like, I don't have time. Well, when you get to have time boundaries, you'll be amazed at how much time that you have. How can you also set up, a boundary? You could say, I would love to help, but I would be overcommitting myself, to be honest with you. Is there any other time that I can do this? Because I can't do it right now. You can also say, we have family time on Sundays, so we won't make it, unfortunately. So that means you're valuing your family time on Sundays rather than yes. And then, your spouse or your children get mad to say, why did you say yes when you know that on Sundays, that's our time? Protect and value that time. I'm happy to help with that, but my hourly rate is protect your time. Say what your hourly rate is, and also determine, how much that hourly rate. So for us as clinicians, 1 hour is not 60 minutes, because many people say, well, I paid for 1 hour, but our 1 hour is usually 45 to 50 minutes. That's 1 hour of our, clinical time. So be sure that you are, understanding the time, frames as well, for the time boundaries, as well as set your own time boundaries. Is that clear? Okay. Think about it. Have you been managing your time? Have you been protecting your time? Have you set any of these boundaries to help others understand your time boundaries? If not, then look at these statements and the ones prior to that and see which ones that you can start saying, because then part of it is you being comfortable setting the boundaries that we're talking about. It starts with your comfort level of setting those boundaries. And remember now, as difficult as it might sound, once you set the boundaries, you freed yourself, because now you don't have to deal with having said yes and then the answer was deep down a no. Trust me, I did that for years. I would say yes, and then I would realize that why did I do that? Because now I don't have time and I've literally put too much on my plate that I can't handle. But now I'm okay with literally saying, may I get some time to take a look at my schedule and I'll get back to you? I don't think I'll be able to do that, to be honest with you, even if I looked at my schedule, because I just know that I have a little bit too much that I have to do right now. I'm very comfortable saying that, and I'm okay saying that, because then I want to respect my time, but I also want to respect those other people's time, because when they ask me, they're also relying on me making time, and that's their time as well. So I'm honoring and respecting their time, and I'm honoring and respecting my time. All right, number 4, let's go to sexual boundaries. This is a big one now when we talk about sexual boundaries. It means agreeing, disagreeing, being respectful of sexual boundaries, understanding preferences and desires, and also privacy. So even if you're married or you are in a long-term relationship, you can have sexual boundaries. Somebody does not have to just say, well, because you're my wife or you're my husband, so we have to have sex, and you cannot say no to me. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. You can set those boundaries. There are moments where the answer is no. The answer is, I can't do it now. So asking for consent is a healthy sexual boundary. People need to talk to you, and you also need to talk to people and ask, is it okay for us to do such and such? Is it okay for me to touch you here? Is it okay, for us to have intimacy time at this moment? Set healthy boundaries. Discussing with someone what pleases you and asking them to do what pleases you is setting a healthy boundary. Telling them what doesn't please you instead of pretending like, oh, well, I'm being pleased, and what can I say? I don't want to embarrass them. I don't want to reject them, but I'm just going to have to just do it, is not a healthy sexual boundary. It's okay for you to say, well, to be honest, I really don't like that touch. I really don't like it when we do this or when you're doing this to me. Healthy boundaries. You can also request a condom, to use a condom if you want to use a condom and be protected. It's a healthy boundary. Discussing contraception because you don't want to get pregnant and you don't want to have a baby at that time, that's healthy. Saying no to things that you do not like or that hurt you, that's a boundary. Protecting the privacy of the other person, that's a boundary. So healthy sexual boundaries might also sound like, do you want to have sex now? Is this comfortable for you? Tell me what you like. Tell me what you don't like. I don't like that. Can we try something different? That's a healthy sexual boundary. I don't want to have sex tonight. Can we just cuddle instead? Even when I was writing this one, I cringed because when you say, can we just cuddle instead? Let's be real. Sometimes just cuddling instead will either turn you on or turn the other person on, and it might end up being a sex night. So be prepared for that. If you say, can we just cuddle instead? That it might end up being a sex night. So being mad when you know that, you know what, cuddling could and can lead to sex sometimes, might not be healthy, thing for you to do. So I always say to people, be clear on what it is that you want, be clear with those boundaries. But then if there's any way that, if we cuddle, then my boundary could be violated, then I would say, you know what, let me just, let's just sleep tonight, and then maybe Friday or maybe tomorrow or whenever it is that you're ready, we can have sex. But tonight, no, I don't think I want to have sex. Okay. I'm really into whatever it is, into that something that you'd feel comfortable with, be able to be open to discuss that as a sexual, boundary. So when it comes to violation, how do you know that you're being violated or you are violating someone? Sulking, punishing, or getting angry if someone does not want to have sex. That is, a sexual violation. Punishing is, I mean, mostly women do this, but guess what? I've been in this field now where I do counseling and coaching services for over 25 years, and it's interesting that also men can hold out on sex and not want to, have sexual relations with their spouses because they're punishing them. So that's a sexual violation. Not asking for consent, pressure someone to engage in unwanted sexual acts, maybe having unwanted sexual comments, or lying about contraceptive use. That's a violation of sexual boundaries. Lying about your health history or not being open about your health history, criticizing other people's sexual preferences, unwanted touch, assault, or rape. Those are violations of sexual boundaries. Okay. Intellectual boundaries. This refers to your thoughts, your ideas, curiosity, and respect of other people. So the violations are when your thoughts and curiosity are shut down, dismissed, or belittled. Healthy intellectual boundaries might sound like, I know we disagree, but I won't let you belittle me like that. You literally can say that. You can also say, I would love to talk about this more, but I don't think talking about it during Thanksgiving dinner is the best time. Make sure your tone, your body language is relaxed and just getting to the point. You can say, when we talk about this, we don't get very far. I think it's a good idea to avoid the conversation right now. I can respect that we have different opinions on this. I usually would even say, well, I agree to disagree, or I disagree to agree, and it's okay. We just have different opinions, and that's okay. All right? Number 6, material boundaries, which is one of those that people are like, what? Material boundaries? Oh, yeah. There are material boundaries where you have boundaries about your possessions, your car, your home, your clothing, your jewelry, your furniture, your money, that you are not one that likes people to use your car all the time or to even drive your car. It's okay to have that boundary. Sorry, I'd rather take you than give you my car. I would rather you don't sleep at the house because, that's a boundary, right? People just have those kind of boundaries and preferences. But it's healthy for us to understand what you can and cannot share and how you expect your items and materials to be treated by other people when you do share. Ooh. That's something I had to learn again, because in my African culture, you could just, ask for a car and you'd be given the car and people will be giving this, so I just thought it was, that it was common and we could do that, but no, you just cannot do that. Healthy material boundaries might sound like, I can't lend out my car. I'm the only person on the insurance. Ooh. We can't give any more money. We would be happy to help in other ways. Ooh. You can also say, sure, I'm happy to share my dress with you, but just a heads up, I do need it back by Friday. Healthy boundaries. So that with everything, people cannot make assumptions. They cannot know what they don't know. You have to be able to express yourself and set healthy boundaries. Does that help? Are you ready to set some boundaries? It's going to be uncomfortable in certain instances with certain people, but I want to encourage you to look out for you, because that's what this is about: igniting your inner strength, standing up for yourself, being confident to say what you want, say what you need, and ask for what you want, right? That's what we're talking about today. Here's another interesting one: self-care, the path to a healthier you and also healthier use of your inner strength. What is self-care? We talk about self-care a lot. Self-care is learning what nourishes our body, mind, and spirit. It's discovering what makes us feel whole and free. It's discovering what gives us purpose, what makes us feel like we matter and we belong. Self-care is a journey of becoming our own best friend. It's about creating intentional, purposeful lifestyle that just brings the best out of you. Developing a routine, self-care routine that works for you. I love the image that I have here of this lady, because one of the things that I used to take for granted is having facials and just taking care of my face, whether it's massaging, putting the avocado, and putting the avocados on my, eyes and just relaxing, or even, going to a spa and having them do the facials for me and massages and just take care of myself. So whenever I see her, it's a reminder, if I'm doing this training, just like I'm doing with you, all of you now, right? It's a reminder to say, oops, when was the last time I did my facial? As part of my self-care. And don't worry, I have more self-care tips for you as we go, through this. So here's where I ask you a question. When it comes to healthy self-care, in your journal or your paper that you have with you, what works for you? When it comes to self-care, what works for you? And what does not work for you? You will also have time to do this after this training. When you get the replay, make some time to take a look at what works and what doesn't work for you. Healthy self-care is knowing what is needed to ensure that your health and happiness in life is at par and it is as you would want it to be, right? This is about taking back the power of what self-care is all about for you. This is all about you. And that's why I asked that question to say, when it comes to self-care, what works and what doesn't work for you? So there are 6 types of self-care. Physical self-care, where we take care of your body. Mental, emotional, paying attention to how you're feeling, your emotions and feelings. Professional, understanding professional and business needs. Spiritual, connecting to your life in a spiritual sense, and it just doesn't mean the church or just that. No, there are many other purposes. When we do the meditations, that's a spiritual connection that we were doing when we did the meditation. When we're doing the yoga, it's a spiritual move that connects you with your spiritual uh, being as well. And then we have social, which involves spending time with the people that you enjoy. Then we have financial, taking care of your bills and savings. If you have debt, guess what? It will only create more debt. So financial self-care is taking care of those bills. See, before I came to America, I was like, what bills, But then I come to America and it's all about the bills, the bills, the bills. All right. So you'll be like, okay, how do I take care of myself in those different, emotions? Real quick, the physical, I'll talk about the exercise. Many people would be like, exercise. Oh, well, it's needed. And I think it's the number one thing when it comes to taking care of ourselves in a physical sense for our self-care. Find a way to walk. I walk. And I happen to be in Florida, which is awesome, right? But I walk. And then there's some people that say, well, but you're in good weather, so it's easy for you to walk. Where my mother lives in Boston, and Boston is freezing cold right now. You know what she does? She will put on exercises on YouTube, and she's in a living room, and you see her walking, those walk exercises, and she's stretching, and she's doing chair exercises, and she's sitting on the couch and she's lifting a leg and everything. So at 78, if she can do that, I don't think we have any excuse to not exercise. That's my spiel. Good sleep, eating healthy is all part of physical self-care. Mental, emotional, psychological is understanding your thinking, your feelings, your emotions. It's about growth mindset, developing a growth mindset. And how do you do that? Part of it is what you're doing right now. This is a mental, emotional taking care of yourself, because you're learning new things and new ways. And you're also, taking care of yourself in self-reflection and seeing what works and what doesn't work. This is actually a really good way of mental, emotional, psychological self-care. Working with someone one-on-one, where we actually go through and talk about your personal mental, emotional, psychological being experiences and some of the blocks that might be going on. That's also a great way of self-care and taking care of yourself. Environmental self-care is about your workspace, your home, decluttering your home. Here's my question that I always ask, right? When was the last time that you took a scrub and literally scrubbed your bathroom, your tub, your shower, and your sink and scrubbed it down? When was the last time? When was the last time that you took your brushes, your scrubs, and said, I'm going to scrub my floors, my kitchen floors, and make it smell good, and just live in a house that is decluttered? So because of our busy lives, a lot of people are like, oh, you should see my laundry. You should see my dishes. You should see my bathroom. When you want to take care of your environment, right, it also helps your mind to be cleared. We talked about burnout. It releases some of the burnout and some of the stress when you take care of your environment. Workspace, it decreases some of that stress of not being able to do it all, to follow through with the projects and complete projects. Workspace, clear your workspaces, your home, declutter. Financial, healthy relationship with money will always be helpful in taking care of the debt and also accomplishing your financial goals. So here's the thing. Do you have financial goals? What are your goals for your finances? If you don't have that, then you're just moving, a car and driving to nowhere, because you will not get the results that you seek, whether it's paying down the debt or saving money or saving, vacation money. I mean, whatever your financial needs are, write your goals. What is it that you want? What are your goals with your money? And then see if you can find a financial planner and, determine multiple streams of income, other ways that you can also earn income. Socially, to fulfill this one here, stay connected and mostly find people that are positive, that are, a good group of people that just, gets you out of the funk or keeps you in that positive energy. Find those kind of people and, spend more time with them. Recreational self-care. I want you to, find that inner child playfulness that you can do. Travel, play puzzles, play movies. I spoke, earlier about, my love of music, where I'm a DJ at Flow Time Radio every Sunday, where I play gospel music. That's for my recreational self-care, because I'm just like a whole different person. I'm dancing to music. I'm inspiring people through, gospel music and playing music. Love doing that. So find your inner child playfulness. What can you do, to just be playful and just, feel relaxed and just happy? Spiritual, as I mentioned, meditation, yoga, self-reflection, finding peace and quiet, worshiping, going to church, or, attending even online, associating with other worshipers, that will help with the spiritual self-care. And finally, the professional is taking care of yourself in a professional manner, where it affects your work, your business. Always seek continuing education, take courses, seminars, conferences, get yourself a coach that you can talk to about your professional development goals, your business goals, and just continue growing in your self-care as far as your personal self-care. So having seen all of this and heard what I've said, what is the first step that you're going to take towards your much deserved self-care? What's your first step? Write it down in the chat, or you can write it down in the piece of paper that you have. What's your first step that you're going to take as part of your self-care? Which of these sections are you going to say, you know what, let me take my first step in the environmental and work on my workspace, maybe at my desk, and maybe my bathroom, or maybe let me take care of those dishes that are in the sink, decluttering. Or maybe it's a mental, psychological, emotional, and you could say, you know what, I'm going to set up an appointment with Dr. Stem and just go through with that. So you must have received a self-assessment, and with this self-assessment, it's a self-assessment where I ask you to rate yourself in these different, sections: physical self-care, psychological self-care, and you rate yourself from 3 to 0. Ideally, you should have received it yesterday prior to us doing this. But if you haven't and you don't have it, please email me, and one of my assistants will send it to you at drstem14@gmail.com. In your emails that you're receiving, you'll also get an email of responding to us. Just respond to us and say, I don't see that assessment, and we'll send you that assessment. In that assessment, I want you to take that assessment, and then once you take the assessment and circle all those things, then you can now come back to this here and see how you're going to take care of all the different sections that you're probably scoring low and need to work on developing them more. Fun, fun. All right. So real quick, some practical self-care tips. Get 8 hours of sleep a night. Go for a walk outside or inside using your YouTube or some other videos that you might find. Eat a healthy, rich, nutritious meal. listen to a podcast or go to my YouTube and listen to the gospel show that I do over there. Meditate, journaling, keep a journal and write down your feelings, thoughts, emotions, excitements, and what you're grateful for. Just write down something in your journal. Connect with a faith community, as part of your self-care. That usually helps. If you're a person of faith, volunteer in your area and just go and help other people. By helping other people, for some reason, it also helps us to feel good about ourselves, to feel better about ourselves. Meet a friend for coffee. Guess what? You don't even have to meet in person. You can meet right here, like on Zoom, a video, and say, hey, let's meet for coffee. I'm going to have my cup of coffee or cocoa. You have your cup of coffee or cocoa. I'm going to have my glass of wine. You have your glass of wine. And let's just talk and catch up. But meet a friend for coffee. Spend 30 minutes a week tracking your finances. Take cold, warm baths or showers. So these are real quick, practical self-care tips that you can start beginning today. If you've been joining me for the last 3 days, when we get to this one here, we are at the end of our presentation. I know today's was a little longer than, the other 2 days, but I had a lot that I needed to share with you about boundaries and wanting to make sure that we talk about self-care. So you'll have a lot of information with you to take care of those 2 areas. So as we are ending this, we're going to do it the same way. We're going to promise ourselves. And today we're doing promises number 9 through 12. And as we've been doing it, let's say this together. Promise number 9. I promise that I will let go of the things that are holding me back. Number 10, I promise myself to stay motivated and pursue my innermost dreams and strong passion. I promise myself to always see the fun and fulfillment in every activity that I partake in. I promise myself that my life will get better and better every day and every year. I am so excited that we are done with day 3, that you've been able to watch these videos or attend with me, in person. Tomorrow is day 4 and last day of our challenge. I hope that you have time that you give yourself before January is done and say, I'm going to go through all these 4 videos and 4 challenges, write down responses to all these questions and promise myself. The good thing is we have a handout that we also send to you that has all 16 promises. So we have 4 more promises that we'll do tomorrow on day 4, but you have a handout that have all promises that I want you to repeat those promises to yourself every day. Pick out a couple promises or 4 promises that you can promise yourself until it really sinks in. So I promise myself that my life will get better and better every day and every year. I will see you tomorrow.